Oh my gosh, Kate Campbell. Welcome to round 2 of 6 questions from the internet with Kate Campbell. How you feeling?
I thought we answered more than 6 on our first.
Well, I interjected a few.
Okay.
Follow-up questions, which is my right as host and producer of this whole thing.
Yep, you're right, Hunter.
I'm Hunter Kelly, a longtime fan of Kate. I've been there since, I remember, so you had some records, I think, before cassettes, but really when you came into your own with Songs from the Levee.
Correct.
94.
That's what we call the first real.
The first real album.
Record.
Okay.
I'd done some tapes and stuff because, I wrote singing at church and had some stuff like that.
Okay. So there's some early bootlegs out there. You'll go find them. Okay, let's get to the questions from the internet. The first one is from Amy Childress Obanoff. Do you know her? Mm-hmm. Did I say her last name? Did I say her last name correctly?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
She'll tell me next time I see her.
We'll hear about it. Okay. So Amy asked, the 2 a.m. notepad by your bed is one thing, but you do a lot of driving. Mm-hmm. How often do you find yourself pulling over to capture an idea, or do you use your phone or an app, pen and paper versus electronic? How do you capture your ideas for songs?
The older I've gotten, I realize if I see something, I do have to write it down. It will be gone. There's just too much going on and I'm driving. I still sometimes, obviously, if it's a cool sign, I stop. And I have been known to drive past it and go, I'm going to have to turn around. I have been known to go back and take a picture.
Which we're going to be sharing more of those because you've got a collection. Yeah,
people will be seeing those pictures. But yes, I'm not really very interested, even at home. I really don't like doing computer stuff, and I just am not interested in that. So I still have little pieces of paper, or have my notepads. If I don't have paper, then I do have just the notes thing on my iPhone. So if it's just a sentence or whatever, I'll write it down till later. I still prefer, again, this is just the writer in me, I like little notebooks. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a good diarist, but I just have notes, just phrases and things people say, and I'm going, wow, that's interesting, and I'll figure out later. For me to write a song, I got to figure out, well, why do I like that? And then I start thinking.
So you don't journal?
No, gosh, no. I'm the worst. I mean, I loved watching Oprah when she was on, and all that journaling. It sounds like a good idea.
Oh yeah.
You'd think the historian in me would be a journalist, but I don't.
I got an Oprah when she launched the OWN network. I got an Oprah notebook, but it's a little small.
Yeah,
but I love journaling, but I guess it's fast. I guess you kind of write. Your writing happens in your songs.
It does. I'm not ever, and even when I was, I'm even a teenager in junior high, I didn't ever journal. I think in the way people think of journaling now. I think about it, think it's a really good idea, and I have tons because I love notebooks. Mm-hmm. But I have lots of ones. I haven't written anything yet because I just like, if it's a Rolling Stones notebook or whatever, cool notebooks and leather notebooks and all that. But which I write my song ideas in, but I don't. Yeah. No journaling.
Okay, no journaling. Well, I mean, it comes out. You express yourself, Kate.
I do a lot of thinking.
Okay, Jan from the Facebook team, Dan and Jan Brown.
Yes.
Wants to know, do you have a favorite song over all these years, and do you ever sing any from your first CD, Songs from the Levee?
Well, I have probably several favorite songs that I'm personally real proud of, or that I still love to sing. Sometimes it's a musical thing or whatever, and it's probably, like I was telling you today, Hunter, Welcome to Ray is one of my favorites. Tupelo's Too Far is a very old song now, but when I wrote that, and that's a solo write, that was a turning point for me in many ways from a writer's standpoint. And of course, it's about Elvis, who, there's Dolly and there's Elvis. Those are my two big heroes. Yeah,
Tupelo's Too Far just captures the loneliness and the hauntedness of...
And the thing is, it never says Elvis, and I didn't even realize that because till, I don't know, some years I was talking about it, I never say Elvis in the song. But to me, it was writing about Elvis.
Oh, of course. Are You Lonesome Tonight reference in there.
Yeah, just, so no journaling. And what else did Jan say?
She wanted to know favorite song, and if you sing any songs from Songs from the Levee.
Absolutely, still. I mean, this has been an amazing thing for me, is the amount of songs that I still do consistently. And if I do concerts where people request, I consistently do Songs from the Levee.
Okay.
Bury Me in Bluegrass, Wild Iris, a cotton field away, really about half, Mississippi and Me. I'll still start off some concerts with Mississippi and Me. I mean, it really sets the basis for everything I've done. It really started the conversation, I think.
That's still going on.
It's still going on, and it's kind of stood the test of time.
Joy Craig has some really fun questions that allude to some of your Kate's greatest hits, as I like to call them.
Okay.
This is related to, of course, Jesus and tomatoes. Your favorite tomato variety?
Oh, gosh, I don't really know. I just like them. I like to eat tomatoes. I would eat one whole like an apple, except they're too messy to do like that.
Maybe in private.
Yeah, I do like a really, really ripe, juicy tomato, and I put salt on it. Now, some members, my grandfather, he had a really sweet tooth, and he would put sugar to eat his tomatoes, but I put salt.
Okay.
And my mother always did that, so I could eat a tomato like an apple, but I just have to slice it and put a bunch of salt on it.
Makes me want a tomato sandwich.
But there's some, don't you love those in the summertime?
With the mayonnaise.
I know. That was our summertime, because we didn't always have the bacon. So you just eat the tomato if you had a tomato, so tomato, mayonnaise, salt. Yeah.
I get a lot of tomatoes because my mom doesn't like tomatoes and my boyfriend Clint doesn't like tomatoes. So I get all the tomatoes from salads.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I know. I like that. No, yes. So, I don't know which. I would eat any variety that was edible.
Okay. Now, the next one is about funeral food. What's the best recipe for a funeral? Covered dish. I mean, it's an art form in the South.
I think it is. And I unfortunately, I think we're losing it even in the South, the way our world has changed. I think people now don't really go and sit and take the food, and they don't necessarily take them to the church anymore or to the family's house. I just think because our world is changing. But I think a casserole of any sort. Now, personally, I love green bean casserole.
Yeah.
Or a potato casserole, any casserole is probably good.
Yeah.
And probably some desserts. But I think I list some in this tune. That's another tune. I thought if I'd known I was going to sing that as many times as I have, I'm like going, wow, where did that come from? Because I also thought people.
I think about it. So my brother passed away in 2017, and it was like the amount of food, and then. The amount of food at after the service at the church, so it's really reassuring that it's just really comforting.
Well, it is, and I was thinking, my my grandmother.
Yeah,
passed
you've been
away
through a lot of loss
recently,
lately,
and I was down in Florida for my mother's service, and then people had brought food, and several people had brought to the house for all my family was down there, and. It was really good stuff, and I thought it was funny because probably my daddy won't be listening to this because he's a Baptist preacher. But what was funny is we're at his house, and there were several like rum cakes, and they really had rum in them. And I was going, does Daddy know that there's really rum in this? But they were excellent.
Okay, well, all the alcohol's baked out, right?
It is. It just evaporates.
Okay.
It evaporates. But anyway, good stuff. I think some good comfort food. I think casseroles. A green bean casserole, some potato casserole.
Yeah.
My
mom has a dish, a casserole that's cream of mushroom and chicken and water chestnuts in it.
Oh my gosh.
And she actually calls it birth and death casserole.
Yeah. Oh, that's an awesome one.
Yeah, it's real good.
That's a chicken casserole. Oh, that's good.
I'm going to need... Mom, I'm going
Plenty
home.
Plenty of cheese.
Yeah, there's a good cheese topping.
You got to have cheese on most of those.
And she actually wrote it down, so Birth and Death Casserole is a good one.
There was the book Funeral Food that the ladies in Mississippi wrote. Or, I'm sure there are several, and I've been given several different ones, like church. A lot of churches still, they'll have like the church, basically cookbook, but a lot of it is a funeral. Well, it's really a funeral food book.
Well, that line from Still Magnolias I think about a lot is when they're going into, which I feel like the older I get, Still Magnolias really encapsulates a lot of my childhood. But when Annelle is going to make a dish before Malin and Shelby go in for their kidney transplant, she's like, I want to make the red beans and rice because it's in the freezes beautifully section of my cookbook. So you want something that freezes beautifully. So the other day, my mom was like, She was like, "Well, Hunter, do you think this is going? Will it keep? Will it freeze?" I was like, "I don't know, Mother. Is it in the freezes beautifully section?"
It's right, and it will. If it's in that section, it's going to freeze. It's going to last.
The best funeral recipe may be something that freezes beautifully.
I think so. I love that. I've forgotten that, Hunter. Yeah, that's good.
Oh yeah. Okay, Adrian Kenny wants to know, what jobs, quote unquote, did you have before you went full time into music? So,
in education.
Okay.
I trained as a historian, and I taught, part time. It's hard to get a college teaching job, but I did. I did several history classes at Belmont. Those of you who
Belmont University. I'm an alum. Okay.
I think it was still a college then. I don't know. Middle Tennessee State. I taught a couple of history courses at Middle Tennessee State, and then when I was starting to write a little bit, and I was beginning to have some meetings. I needed a part-time job, and a private school here in town needed a 1-year guidance counselor. So
you guided the students?
Yeah, right. I know. I was like, what? And then I ended up teaching, in high schools and stuff, they need whatever. Teachers have to do a bunch of stuff. So it was a private school because, I don't have a teaching certificate because I was going to teach college. So I didn't have a teaching certificate. So I was a guidance counselor, and then I taught a class of sociology. And I have to tell everybody this if we have time for this.
Oh, yeah, we do.
I had a student whose father was in the Christian music industry. And the last day of class, she was graduating because she was a senior. And she said to me, "Miss Campbell, I know that you write songs. And would you like to, have a meeting with my dad?" And he wasn't he was the president of a company. He wasn't, one of the gatekeepers, as I like to call the publishing people. He was the head of this Christian label at the time. And I said, "Sure, whatever." And she goes, I didn't expect anything because I'd had all kinds of meetings with all kinds of people, for the couple of years before that. And so she goes, "Well, he has a piano in his office and you should bring your guitar." I said, "Really?" Because I was used to just bringing in tapes and having a 10-minute meeting, and people going, "Well, I don't really hear it," this kind of stuff. So I went, and so it was an hour, and I played live for him, and I had my whole full notebook and whatever. And the most interesting thing, I think folks will find this interesting, he says, "The problem is you don't really belong in the Christian music industry." Mm-hmm. And I always thought I did because, that was it wasn't necessarily my background, but I thought I was writing songs that were positive and were more in the Christian market of a sort, even though they had a lot of stories, just like people here now, they had a lot of stories and stuff. And he goes, "Have you tried out for the Bluebird?" I go, "No." And he goes, "Well, you should go and try out to sing at the Bluebird and get to play 3 songs. And then if they like you, get to come back." So I went, and I'd written the song, speaking of the first album, called The Locust Years. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that's really weird. It's a really weird song. But that's what I auditioned with. And when you audition, you just get up there and you sing one verse and one chorus. It's on a Sunday afternoon. So that's what I did. And so anyway, I made it the first time because they said, "We've never heard a song called The Locust Years before."
Yeah.
And so then I started singing at the Bluebird. First you get to do a 30-minute show by yourself. Then I was in Riders in the Rounds and all that kind of stuff. And that's really in all because of that guy who said, you don't really belong in the Christian music industry. Yeah. It's kind of amazing.
Well, and you're still doing shows at the Bluebird.
I'm still doing shows at the Bluebird all these years.
Which now the Bluebird, because so Nashville's gone through such a crazy change. Oh. Mostly because of the TV show Nashville.
Absolutely. It's out of...
So... Which, happened, that was designed to really, the story of Nashville, that it was really Gaylord Opryland behind it.
Yes.
To boost tourism.
Right.
And they've done it.
Uh-huh.
So we're grateful for our home value, our property values going up, but lowered the traffic. But the Bluebird, as a result, the change you've seen to the Bluebird must be crazy.
You can't hardly get it. And people come, it only holds really 80 people, I would say. Yeah. And even though people would come and we do the songwriters nights and all that, but since the whole Nashville phenomenon or whatever, people come and, people it's hard for my fans to even get in
Yeah.
the door.
Because my parents love to go, and I'm like, well, rub a lamp.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's great, but it's hard. It's hard for, for local fans to get in.
Well, let's get back to this. This is great follow up to your history professor background. Rachel Margaret. Wait, we've had her before. Glado or Giotto?
I don't know if she says Glodo or
Glodo. It's Glodo.
Yeah, it's Glodo.
Maybe I do need to upgrade my prescription on my contacts. Sorry about that. Rachel wants to know: would you be interested in being the topic of a musicological conference paper?
Sure.
I think you would.
Sure. And actually, I've had a couple of people. There was a girl. She from Germany. Anyway, she did a whole PhD dissertation, and she did a section on me, and I don't remember, Ira. I read it, but Ira, I think, I wish my husband Ira was here because he remembers some of that stuff.
He can quote passages.
Yeah, he can. But several people have used quotes or whatever.
Do you remember learning anything about yourself, or because you're in the middle of it, making it, and then somebody else looking from the outside? Did you learn anything from that process?
Well, it's interesting to me how people, one thing I realized pretty early on in my life, though, but particularly even once I was starting in on this, is what a song ultimately, wherever I'm writing that song comes from, no one can truly understand. But just like no one can understand if you hear a song, because whatever you're bringing to that song is Hunter. Mm-hmm. So no one can, it's not that songs aren't about things, but I always hesitate to tell people, oh, well, you have to hear it this way. Because we all bring different things, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, in my case, as the writer, sometimes I think I'm writing a song about one thing, and I record it, and I'm still thinking this is the prime thing. And then, though, if I've written the song correctly, through the years, you're singing it sometimes, and I go, no, now this is what the song is telling me, and I'm the songwriter. So, you never know. You can't know. Hopefully, I wouldn't want to tell somebody how to listen to it. Whatever they need to hear, they need to hear. That's great.
That's good. You got to abide the mystery is something I just picked up from, Linford Detweiler from Over the Rhine.
Yep.
He quoted Joe Henry, their producer, saying, you got to abide the mystery.
Absolutely. It's all about that.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Let the mystery be.
Oh, yeah.
You know that song?
Isn't that
Iris DeMent.
It's
a great song.
It was and I knew it as the theme to The Leftovers on Hell's Box Office.
It's just such a great, Let the Mystery Be is such a great song.
HBO. I always say Hell's Box Office because that's what our pastor called it in the 90s. So I'm like, what is it on? Hell's Box Office. Final question of this round from Kenneth G. Coke. He wants to know, what is the meaning of deep tang in your song Deep Tang? And he says, we have been to some of the iron quarries in Birmingham, Alabama, the old iron mill. It must be the smoke and haze it puts out into the air.
Well, that's part of it. But, I wrote Deep. That's another one of my favorite songs, actually. Now, I haven't done it in a while. Now I'm going to have to go home and practice it because I
love Deep Tang.
It's one of my favorites ever because I was reading a lot of haiku at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I actually had two versions. I wrote the song and, I got the title from a science fiction book, the Mars Trilogy. Mm-hmm. I like to read science fiction too. And it's just one of the chapter titles, and it was Deep Tang. And I thought, kind of like that. Mm-hmm. And so then I thought, because I remembered as a little girl, we would go to Panama City, and we would go in the 1960s, and we'd drive from Nashville and we'd go down there. And sometimes we would get to Birmingham early in the morning because my dad was like, okay, we leave Nashville at 4:00, then we're going to be able to go to the beach. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to Panama City Beach. Of course, it never happened really.
Yeah.
For the first day, but we would be coming into Birmingham when I was a little girl in the 60s, and the sun would be coming up, but it was just like this complete, those people who remember this early on, kind of smog, kind of a gold orange haze around Birmingham, Alabama. And so I'd been thinking about that Deep Tang for a long time. I thought, well, I can write that about Birmingham. And that's what happened. But I wrote a more normal song at first. I'm
glad you kept it weird.
What happened is I wrote, just kind of had verses and stuff, and then I was, like I said, I was into my haiku, and I thought, I think I'm just going to take out a bunch of words, and it ended up being the way it is, and also changed the music a little bit because it gave me that very bump, 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 bump. It's one of my favorite songs ever.
Oh, yeah, it's so impressionistic. So I grew up in Birmingham, Gardendale, and then we'd go over to the mall, the old mall, Century Plaza.
Uh-huh.
And we would go through Tarrant, Alabama, which is where all those,
right.
I mean, it is just still just factory. So I know that steel mill and everything.
Also, Ira's great-grandparent, people in his family, they worked in the mines or in the steel industry, And we actually have, I think it would be his great-grandfather, we have a little lantern that has, it etched on it that they took down into the mine, that his great-grandfather, or either his great-grandfather's great-great-grandfather took down into the mines, probably around the turn of the 1900s. It's not very big. I know Hunter's the only one who can see me. It's not very big. It's a little lantern, very thick glass, heavy metal, whatever. And he had drawn this little picture on it, and his initials, and my husband's named after him, it said I-C or whatever on the side of it. And I remember one time one of my cats knocked it over onto our wood floor from a high thing, didn't even crack.
Wow.
Anyway, so it's so I was probably even looking at that little lantern when I started writing Deep Tang.
Okay. I just think about the drink Tang, which don't you reference?
Well, that's the other thing.
Don't you reference Tang in Back to the Moon?
Yes, I do, because I'm also into Tang. and again, that came from my, all my weird readings in the space. I love the space program. That was a big deal in my life in the 60s as a little kid. So, yeah. Tang was a big deal.
Well, and which leads me back to your space and technology record, monuments.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to later. Okay. We've answered all 6 questions for this round, Kate Campbell. Thank you so much.
And then some, probably.
Well, yeah, because we get to talking.
I know.
So y'all send in your questions, and we'll keep doing this round because this is so much fun.
It's awesome.